Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about something that I struggle with sometimes and I'm sure that you have in your life, and that is with sharing. Alright, so who has something that they really love, like a special toy or something that they do not like to share with anybody? Maybe your brother or sister wants to come play with it a lot and you don't like for them to play with it and you don't like to share. I completely understand. My husband likes to bring me Reese's peanut butter cups. And you know, those come and they have like 2 in the package, and I don't want to share those, but I know that he really loves them too, and I love him, and so I know the right thing to do is to share. And then I get to see him happy, and that makes me happy, and so sharing ends up making me feel good, right? But it's not always easy, is it? And so today we're not only talking about how we should share with other people, but we're going to talk about sharing with Jesus. It's so much more important to share with Jesus than even sharing with our family and that kind of thing. So today we're going to be in the book of John. All right, so let's get our Bibles. And Miss Kelly told a story last week that she said was in several of the Gospels, and this week the same thing. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all 4 are what we consider the Gospels, and they're books that people have written about the story of the life of Jesus. And so this story that we're going to read today is in all 4 of the Gospels, but we're going to talk about specifically in John, the one that John wrote. Okay, so John chapter 6, and we're going to start in verse 5. All right, so this is after Jesus had been, he's really in the middle of his ministry, and he's been teaching and he's been performing miracles. And so everybody is like, who is this guy? And they want to see him. So all of a sudden Jesus is finding himself in the midst of lots and lots of crowds that are following him around. So this is after some where he's performed some miracles and some times like that. So let's start in chapter 6, verse 5. When Jesus looked up and saw a crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. So we already see that Jesus is a really great teacher. Have you ever had a teacher, and I'm sure you do in school, where they want you to think about something, and so they just ask you a question? They already know the answer, and they know what's going to happen, but they want you to think about it. All right, and so that's what Jesus is doing right here. He already knows what he's going to do, but he wants the other disciples to think about it. And so he said, how are we going to feed all these people, right? So Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Wow, that's a lot. Think about how much money like your parents make in half a year. It would take that much money to feed all these people, even just one little bite. Well, one little bite's not going to help, is it? And so what Philip is saying here is, this is basically impossible, Jesus. Okay? All right, let's go on to verse 8. Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?" All right, so I want you to imagine that you are this little boy, and you've heard about this man who's doing all these amazing things, and crowds are following him, and so you're this little boy, and you are one amongst a whole bunch of people. All right, the Bible says 5,000 men. So that's just the men. That's not including anybody else that might be there. All right. So you're this little boy among all these people, and maybe your mama packed you a lunch, and you packed 5 barley loaves and 2 little fishes. All right. And this is a pretty good lunch for a little boy, isn't it? But you're this little boy, and you see that you have this lunch, but everybody around you is hungry. Now, you can say, "Oh, I don't have enough to feed very many people, so I'm just going to eat my lunch and let them worry about themselves." Or you might say, "Well, I've got enough to help out a couple of friends, and so maybe I'll just, share with a couple of friends, and we'll be happy, and I don't let the rest figure it out." All right, but let's see what really happens here. So in verse 10, Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Okay, so have you ever had a teacher sitting you down in the classroom? Or you go to the gym for PE and there's 100 kids in there. How long does it take to get you sat down? Imagine how long it would take to get 5,000 and more people all sitting down on this grassy area. He said there was plenty of grass in the place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. So this little boy decided to give his lunch to Jesus, because he'd seen Jesus do all these amazing things, and maybe he kind of knew that Jesus could do something amazing with this. So Jesus took the loaves, he gave thanks, and he distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. So not just a bite, not just a little bit, but as much as they wanted. And then he did the same with the fish. When they all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over, let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. Okay, so not only did they have enough to feed everybody all that they wanted, they had 12 basketfuls left over. All right, I cannot imagine watching Jesus break off a piece and hand it to somebody and then still have a full loaf, and break off a piece and hand it to somebody. Can you imagine the miracle that they watched there? All right, then in verse 14, this is our last verse here. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who has come into the world." All right, so Jesus has not only fed them and taken care of their physical needs. People are starting to understand who he is, that he's going to be able to take care of their spiritual needs. All right, and so we see later on, after Jesus leaves this place, he's talking to his disciples, and he tells them, you saw me do that miracle where I shared the bread, where I took this bread that the little boy shared with me, and I multiplied it. And he later he says in verse 35 of the same chapter, he says, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry." Okay, and so I want you to think about what it means that Jesus is the bread of life. Okay, so we can eat bread and fill our tummies, right? But what does it mean that Jesus is the bread of life? He can fill our spirit, right? He can make us, sometimes our spirit gets hungry, and we need to spend time with Jesus and with other Christians and things like that. And so Jesus is saying, I'm your bread. I'm your spiritual bread. I can make your spirit feel full, not just your tummy feel full. All right, so what I want you to understand is that not only is it important for us to share the things that we have with our friends and with our family and the people who need it, we need to share what we have with Jesus, because he can take it and do amazing things with it. So maybe you think, well, I really don't have anything to share. Like, I don't have anything to give Jesus. But you know what? Maybe you're really good at baseball or soccer or dance or cheerleading. Maybe you're really good at something like that, or singing, and maybe you have a team, and sometimes when we're playing a sport or something like that, we can kind of get a bad attitude or things like that, or other people on the team, we see them getting a bad attitude. But we can think, okay, I'm really good at this sport and I have Jesus inside of me. And so when things aren't going well, if I can still be positive and still be encouraging to my teammates, then they're going to see that, and maybe that'll affect my team, and they'll wonder what's different in me. And so maybe Jesus will take that gift and I can give it to him, and he will use it to influence other people. Or again, maybe you like to sing, and Jesus can take that gift and he can use it to share who he is with other people. There's so many things. I want you to think of something that you have, a talent or a gift that you have, that you can share with Jesus, that he can take and multiply and spread who he is around the world. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you have had a fantastic 4th of July. And as we get more into the summer, I hope that you just have a wonderful time spending time with your family. And we'll hopefully see you again next Sunday.